What's up, gang? It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And I'm a little, what's the word? Sheepish? Maybe not sheepish. I might be a conspiracy theorist / UFO believer. I don't know. I'm watching this series on Netflix I think it's called Ancient Aliens. And I'm all in. Like, I believe it. I believe that there is life beyond this earth. I do that. I mean, listen, if this is an infinite universe and we're the only life form, that would be absurdly arrogant. But it's interesting there's a lot I want to unpack here for you, because this goes beyond me just being, goofy and weird. There's so much here I want to say. First of all, let me say this. I think a lot of you have your own ideas of conspiracy theory and far out ideas about what is true and what exists. And most of us live in very confined and controlled environments in which how much crazy we let out. Most of you, like me, don't let the crazy out because we don't want to be judged or outcast by other people or not even other people, but the collective mob, right? Like, individually, we believe what we believe, but there's an interesting mob mentality that happens when we all start to think together, and it gets crazy. So the first thing that's interesting to me is how much we all, if we could open our minds, how much most of us could connect some dots that we otherwise don't connect. Now, this could go into marketing. This could just go into straight up existence of things, like how do we get here? How do we get here as a species, etc. There's some crazy stuff, but let's keep going down this road. It is also interesting that as I'm watching this series, it's interesting how much of this content or research or whatever I didn't know about. Right? There's this thing. There's the Bermuda Triangle. Most people know that. There's this thing in Japan called the Dragon's Triangle, and it's on roughly the same latitude as the Bermuda Triangle, and similar things happen over the Dragon Triangle that happen over the Bermuda Triangle. So that's interesting. But as I'm watching all of this data underneath the water, right under the water where this Dragon Triangle is, are all of these man-made structures. There's a man-made structure under there that is the size of 2 football fields with 90-degree angles and pathways and staircases and stuff that was clearly there. It was clearly man-made, not earth-formed, and it's been there. It's been buried in water, way under the water in the ocean, which would have been 14,000 years ago. So, very fascinating about that. Which brings me to the point that there is data that most of us don't know about, right? That if we had it, it would inform a different perspective. We sort of live without that data and then go about life as we understand life today, but without that other data, or with that other data, it might change how we think about things. You also, in the scope of business and marketing, are going about your days in the current time, doing what you do, but you don't have all the data. And so if you had more data, you might do things differently. You might understand the world differently. You might understand the game of marketing differently. My goal in this post is not so much to talk about my woo-woo crazy ideas about our origins and what's really happening in the world, as much as it is to simply connect some dots and a lesson, which is, there's a lot more to what's going on than you understand. Can we agree on that? There's a lot. I don't care about whether this is the pandemic of coronavirus, because I will tell you there's a lot more to this than you understand. Or is this about? We could even take this to just like I said, there is more data here than you're seeing. And if you had that data, you might behave differently about how you do business and marketing. Either way, it's interesting to me as I'm exploring this Ancient Aliens documentary on Netflix. It's interesting, right? if you can open your mind, like, what's the harm in opening your mind? What's the harm in it? It's interesting because I can hear, I don't think you would do this because if you've watched this show for any length of time and you're in my tribe, we can get out there. But if somehow you found this show and you're not in this tribe and you're like, dude, you are crazy, fine. But it's interesting how much we pretend to know all that causes what we experience, or we pretend to know that everything is the way it is and that's the way it is. When in fact, you don't know. You have no idea. Who was it? Was it Newton who said, we stand on the shoulders of giants who have gone before us? Like but if you trace that lineage back, the lineage of giants of shoulders we're standing on, go far enough back, you start losing the storyline. You start losing the narrative. And so many of us are standing on the shoulders of giants who've gone before us, one generation before us, but we've forgotten, or we never heard of, the shoulders of giants who are thousands of years before us. And because of technology, right, like as in the printing press or whatever, like the knowledge thousands of years ago is minuscule because we just didn't have the proliferation of the printing press and data and literacy, etc. So it is interesting to begin to think about it. If I had to summarize this this episode, because we're out here today, we're exploring some things today in this episode. If I had to summarize, what I would say is that perspective informs behavior. Perspective informs behavior. And flip that around, how you're behaving now comes from a particular perspective you have. So if you are, for example, if you are shrinking in this pandemic, or you're shrinking in general in your business about marketing, it's because you have a particular perspective about what marketing is for you, the risk it represents for you, the fear it represents for you, etc. So perspective informs behavior, and vice versa. Our behavior comes from a particular perspective that we have. And your job in all of this isn't to go watch Ancient Aliens and redefine your crazy. That's not the goal here. The goal here is for you to begin to investigate and expand your mind for the things that you really want, or the things that really matter to you. I don't care if you believe in aliens. I don't care if you watch this documentary. What I do care about is that somewhere inside of you, you have important work. You have something that is beyond you, that is welling up, right? A message, a difference to make, a purpose to leave. There's something that is bigger than you that you want to give your life to. And in order for you to behave a particular way about that, so that that vision or that purpose is created, you're going to have a different perspective. And to get that different perspective, you're going to have to begin to open your mind. Because most of us live in a very small mind, a very small world, right? Created by a very small mind. So that's it for today, gang. I'm just coming to you from the land of crazy over here because it's interesting to me, all the data that we don't let in that could inform how we live. So if you'd like to expand your perspective to alter your behavior in marketing, I actually have a 6-week program for that. It's called the Groundswell Method Intensive. The Groundswell Method Intensive is 6 weeks with me, designed to help you tap into that message that is welling up with inside of you, so that, and then partnering that message with the mechanics to help you get that message out in the world and begin to make the difference that not only makes a difference in the world, but gives your life meaning. Most of you are stuck in a business where it has some meaning, but it could have so much more. And that's because you haven't connected to the message and broadcast that in a bigger way. So if you'd like to learn more about that, go to groundswellmethod.com, groundswellmethod.com. The link is in the text of this post, groundswellmethod.com. And on the last page of these 5 videos is an application button. It says apply today. So just click the apply today button. The application comes to me and I will look at that for our next upcoming program. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Until tomorrow when we post again. See ya.